again, you were I think also asking. So yes, Bedrock knowledge bases supports. I thinking you were asking this thing. It supports a multi-model data processing. So you can analyze and leverage both textual and when we talk about multi-model in generative AI space, we talk about there are two different kinds of model. One model that works on just text, and then another set of model that works on images, that works on videos. So the multi-model approach, when we talk about usually a textual as well as the image based model. So Amazon Bedrock supports multi-model data processing, where you can analyze and leverage insights from both textual and image data. We have different models for different things. So if you hear about the Amazon's Nova model, they're usually into the image space, like Nova Reel. You can create videos on the go using Nova Reel model. You can create photos using an Amazon Canvas model. You can use Stability Diffusion model to create images and photos. Sorry, images and videos. So RAG is not an AWS based concept. It's an generative AI based concept. Now, what are we adding as a value there? Like I told you, you could use foundational models from SageMaker as well. Why did I tell at that time that you will get much more features in Amazon Bedrock? Now, what are those features? Is that fully managed RAG workflow, like I told him. It's just matter of minutes to create a RAG workflow in AWS. I'll show that to you guys as well, but it's just matter of minutes that you can create a RAG workflow. This same RAG workflow, if you wanted to create on your own without a plug and play solution, it may take you days out there to create a multi-model thing, to create a data source, to create a connection between them, to store it into vector DB. This is a very hectic job. So how Amazon Bedrock helps in there? RAG is not our concept. What we are doing, we are offloading this operational stuff from you. We are just telling you, you just plug and play, click, and create a RAG workflow that basically gets integrated with your large language models. And how does it? So now what you get, your accuracy, your relevancy, your depth of response increases because we have created the workflow like that. And your operational overhead also reduces. You again need to worry about your product, not the RAG workflow, not the multi-model approach, not the embedding models, not the data source and other things. Any doubts on this? Anything? Perfect. Okay, I've told about this, but yeah, I'll just again touch upon it that, like you said, you don't need to worry about the fine tuning and the continued pre-training, but yes, they are a way to basically get a much more results out of your large language models. But again, it's a trade-off that comes with a high complexity, cost and time. So you need to think, do you need to invest in that? If you look into it, if you wanted to do a specific task with a maximum accuracy, like I told at that time as well, you can fine tune your model. How do you do it? With a small number of labeled data sets. Labeled data, each data which has a label is known as labeled data set. And if you want to basically maintain the model's accuracy for a particular domain, like maybe a healthcare, maybe a finance, maybe a retail, maybe a manufacturing, you can use the same large language model. You can pre-train it. Pre-train means, if the word says continued pre-training, you are again pre-training the model. Model's already been trained, but you're training it on some other data set. And what do you need there? A large number of, not the labeled data set, but the raw data set, that is unlabeled data sets at the end of the day. So that's how you customize your model's response for your business. Make sense on this? Perfect. Okay. Then a very important component, like I told you about the Amazon Bedrock agents. I told you about the agentic AI. So again, agentic AI is not again an Amazon Bedrock concept. It's an generative AI concept as whole. How are we adding value there? What plug and play solution you get there is Amazon Bedrock agents. Bedrock agents again offloads the process of creation of all these agents, the models and everything agent AI. We'll see in the console as well. It's a very visually kind of console. You can just drag down, you can just put it. You just need to choose what your agents needs to do at the end of the day. And what Bedrock agents helps you do, it pushes you from a reactive to a proactive approaches where you can use multiple things at once. For example, consider you want a generative AI application to behave as a marketing company. Now you were saying that you are into a marketing company and you are this and you need to perform set of. Now marketing company would have certain jobs to do. Means it would have a person that will send the mails. It would have ones that will track the leads. It will have one which will send the notification to other people. There are multiple components. Now, since it's not a reactive approach, it's a proactive approach. What you will do, you will tell each of the agent to basically perform one job. One of the agent to send the emailers, one of the agents to track the leads, one of the agents to basically maybe do another specific job, book something or other things. And then you will have another agent sitting on top of it like a normal thing. It's a common what agents is trying to do. Agents, like it's an agentic AI space. So if it would have been reactive, what we have done, we could have taken the results from each one of them, put what is the lead and then got it. No, it's an agentic AI space. We'll have another agent sitting on top of it, which will be seeing all these three agents, get the results from it, collate the result, seeing, because now that is the top of it. It will collate the result based on its wisdom and give result back to you. So it's a proactive approach out there. It's not reactive approach. So what agents are trying to do, agents at the end of the day is trying to perform a set of actions or set of jobs for anything. That could be anything. That could be for connecting to external servers, connecting to or sending something out there. Any job it can perform based on things, and it could be managed or orchestrated based on either using step functions or strands or anything. So this is what Bedrock is. So if you look into the slide also, what it does, it basically decomposes your steps, what you're going to do, into available actions. It creates an action group that this is what you need to do using a set of model. It executes an action. Now when you say execute the action, how will it execute the action? It by the whatever the action rating, and using a large language model and foundational model, or using a knowledge base, and then it gives you the final answer. That's the Bedrock agents for you. And so you guys recently would have heard a lot about the MCP servers and other things. So MCP servers again MCP servers comes in the same space, but it's a much smaller space than agentic AI. So if you talk about MCP servers are doing nothing. It's just MCP. So MCP is a protocol, an open source protocol, which is used to have a communication between your chatbots to any of the external APIs or any of the external sources. Just a part of what agents do. But what MCP server does it just does it for a specific space in a very detailed way. So you have got MCP servers for a specific thing. You've got you can create your own MCP servers as well. You've got a lot of MCP servers. So that has a depth analysis of it. So you just what you do is you tell your chat to use MCP protocol to talk to that MCP server, get the results out there, and then give you the results, because every chatbot or every LLM has an MCP client embedded in it. So you just need to use that MCP client using MCP protocol to connect to an MCP server and get the results. For example, if I wanted to create maybe I wanted to create an AWS architecture, and you don't have an AWS architect around here, what you need to do is, and we have got MCP servers for AWS architectures. So you just install that AWS architecture thing, and then tell it that, okay, do this is what I'm trying to do. This is what I'm trying to do. Create an architecture out of it. It will go ahead. So your Q chat or your ID or a chatbot will directly go ahead and talk to your MCP server in AWS MCP servers, architecture AP servers. Try to resolve it, get the results out of there, and create an architecture for it. For example, similar way, there's an EKS MCP server. So when you go ahead and create that, I wanted to create this in terms of the MCP in EKS. What will do? You just need to write to your chatbot saying that I need to perform this. It will go ahead and query the MCP servers. It will let you get the results out there, and you can just utilize it. So it's doing the same job that AI agents are doing at the end of the day. But what additional it's doing is that it's just very specific components of just using or basically querying, accessing a direct API, or basically accessing a data source, just a specific part of it. So you can think MCP servers is just a subset of your your agentic AI space. So MCP server is just doing, and agentic AI has much more capabilities apart from MCP server. It's just a subset which do a very detailed way of for a particular component. Make sense? I think I also have a queue chat in my laptop. So while doing the demo, I'll show you how we can connect to MCP servers and can query and can create architectures or cost and everything. So how do you basically define the Bedrock agents? You select a foundational model, you provided basic instructions. Now when I say basic instruction, that's the action group. You tell it what to do. It has the model created, but you need to tell him what the agent needs to do. You provided a relevant data source, maybe if scrapping is needed or something is needed, and then you specify the available actions, that this is set of the actions in an action group. So that's the basic instruction for the model, and this is the action, the basic instruction for your agents. So if you look down as well, it breaks down and orchestrates your task. It securely accesses and retrieves company data from RAG. So what this thing is doing, it's a multi-step process. First thing, it's just breaking down and orchestrating your task. It's securely accessing and retrieving your company data. It takes action by invoking an API call on your behalf. And then again, if you look it down, what does it show? Chain of thought trace. We have moved to the agentic AI space, but still what is sitting on back of it is the prompt thing. Still we are talking about chain of thought. So prompt will remain the basics and will always be basics. So basics will never go out of picture. So what we are doing a chain of thought trace to basically modify the agent's prompt, collaborate all the result and push the output of there. So that's how agent works. So selecting the model for each agent would have its own foundational model where it will break down and orchestrate the task. It will access the company data, take the action based on the API call, and then basically use a chain of thought method to orchestrate the result that is coming from multiple agents and give the output to you. Any questions on Bedrock agents? Again, see, if you're going to move to agentic AI space, this is going to be, yes, the way of creating agentic AI and agents in Amazon Bedrock is very easy, but you need to understand when you need to use it and how you need to use it. The only thing you need to understand here is that when I tell you about the prompt engineering or the RAG or the continued pre-training or the fine-tuning or the Bedrock capabilities or the agents capabilities, it's been simplified for you at the end of the day. It's been simplified as that everything is plug and play. But you need to decide, if you remember the generative AI stack, what you need to decide is that what I'm trying to build and how can I build it at the end of the day. And for that you need to understand these things. When is prompting needed? When is RAG needed? When is fine tuning needed? When is agents? That's the only judgment call you need to take. It's just when you take that right call out there, then creation of generative AI application becomes much more easier for you. Because where the things can be done by prompt, you don't need to use RAG. Where things could be done by RAG, you don't need to get into agentic AI. Where agentic AI is needed, you can't expect a result from prompt. So that's the thing, you need to understand what is what and when we should use ideally what part of it. Make sense, everybody? Anybody has any doubt on anything still from the scratch? From the AI stack to your prompting, to Bedrock, catalog of models, RAG, fine-tuning, agents, anything. Embeddings. For I'll tell you. So for example, prompting, for example, if you just want what happens, if you have a large language model, it usually has a knowledge cutoff because the models may have been trained 6 months, 8 months, 10 months back. So for example, if you want, if you're creating you're using a model and you know that it's been trained 8 months back, but you want to continuously give an output. You have created a chatbot which continuously gives output in a real time to a latest data. Now model can't give it because maybe the chief minister which have been right now would have changed, it would have changed 6 months back. So what you do, you basically scrap the latest data and you put it into a RAG based approach. Every day you scrap the data, store into a RAG based approach, use that RAG to provide a context to your model and get the output. This is where you use RAG to basically avoid the knowledge cutoff. That's one use case of RAG. When you say prompting, not just a basic natural language prompting, a better crisp prompt to do it. So that kind of prompt, you basically put that prompt into a large language model and see the results. If you're getting a good result, you go with you can change with the prompting method, change from a few shot, from 0 shot to few shot to chain of thoughts. I explain that things, how does each of them changes. And if you get the good result, prompting is a good choice for you. But no, if you're getting into knowledge cutoff, go with a RAG based approach. Another RAG based approach is, for example, you have a specific data set. Consider that consider you are a TV company, and now the kind of how your TV gets on, or where your speaker buttons are, and this is pretty different for you. And how your models are trained is generic. So you have created a TV that has a very different way of handling it. Now if I ask you that how should I on an ABC TV, maybe I will get a different result, because the model knows 10 different TVs which work in similar manner. It will aggregate the result and give to you. But for you to give an enterprise layer data, that how your TV works at the end of the day, you put your data into a data source and provide a context saying that my TV gets on maybe by from down in the left hand side, or from the middle button, or anything. That's the context. Similarly, you have a bike. So maybe the most models are trained that to have a 5-gear bike. Now you have a Java or some other bike which has a 6 gears. So if you put, how can I put 6th gear, at what speed should I put 6th gear? It may give an error that you don't need to put a 6th gear. But if you're a specific company that is putting it that at 120 you can put a 6th gear, you just provide a context that, okay, this, if you have this bike at this time, this will work. So that's to avoid the genericness of it. So usually, since the LLMs are trained on a very large generic data, and if you want a very specific answer that is very related to your enterprise, you provide an enterprise level data source that gets a context from it, so that the relevancy of your output increases at the end of the day. Make sense? Perfect. For the third thing, again, for the pre-training and the fine-tuning, if you want to if you have the deck, if you want to include a particular feature into it, you can just provide a labeled data set. The model itself will evolve to do it, because any context you are providing, it is better, but not better than if the model is on itself giving the result, because that will be not a context to the response. That's an original response from a prompt only. So that's where you can do it. But again, the trade-off is the complexity, the time, the cost you are putting into it. For example, now you have an enterprise data source, you tried adding RAG to it, for example, maybe for analysis of a doctor's prescription, maybe an eye doctor, or maybe maybe a orthopedician or anything. You tried putting RAG to it, but the output was not again that good. Because again there were a lot of relevancy issues out there. And then what we'll do? You will basically take that large language model, you will go ahead and train, but that is for a very specific use cases in an industry only. You take that model, you will again go ahead and continue pre-training that model on a specific domain. You will train it on a medical language, you'll add a BART score to it, you'll add an accuracy to it, you'll change the recall values to it, you'll change the hyperparameters of it, and you'll tell it to basically respond in this medical terms, maybe specific to a particular things. So for example, if the input is this, it will give an out. That's where the continued pre-training comes in picture. Make sense? Now same way comes the agentic AI. Like I said, this is all reactive coming. This is all reactive, because either we are putting prompt is taking context, or you are training the model, but everything is reactive till now. But now we don't need, when you think about an artificial intelligence, everything, it's fine, it's giving us the result. But it should be able to do tasks on its own, take a set of actions, because it's this. That's when you talk about the proactive approach that's where the agents come in picture. That if this happens, go ahead and trigger this. If this happens, go and trigger. That's an agentic AI workflow you do. And that could be, like I said, a marketing company. For example, you get these leads, trigger this mail to this people. For this lead, trigger this to this people. Accumulate this, create a campaign, and then track the leads out there. For these leads, send a mail to maybe an account manager saying that this is happening. So that's where the agentic AI comes in picture. It's not reactive. You're not going and asking the model or your data that how many leads have occurred. Okay, give me a lead to basically do it. it is doing everything on its own. It has a five thing. I think the right slide is also opened. So you have got a multi-agent capability out there. So where a multiple agents could be collaborated to do a job. Now, how does multiple agents managed? There are multiple ways. Earlier we used to use step functions to do it. Now a very good latest way of using a strands agent is came up, where you can use strands agent to manage multi agents, and that can do a job for you. So that's where agentic workflow or agentic AI comes in picture. So that's the thing. Any more doubts on multi agents, agentic AI? You got clear answers to everything. Again, it's a trade-off between the. So for a most open the data. So the most what we recommend to customer is using an OpenSearch, because the relevancy and the accuracy is much better in the OpenSearch, either the normal DB or the serverless option of it. Because again, like I told, the algorithm which it uses is the KNN, which is a very good algorithm for semantic searching. So we recommend that. But again, if it's a proper relational database, we also recommend customers to use Aurora Postgres, because if the data that we are storing is structured in that sense, and because Aurora Postgres is little bit on a cost effective side when you compare it with the Postgres with an open source thing. Pinecone and Red again, if it's a data that is too much into maybe an enterprise layer caching data, you can use Pinecone. Pinecone is open source, so we have just started using it, because a lot of the older enterprise applications were built on top of Pinecone. So like he said, a lot of customers wanted to use Pinecone in their application because they've already built the RAG already in Pinecone. That's why we brought Pinecone as an RAG support there. So, and Redis is our own, Redis Enterprise. Again, if a lot of customers are, because Redis and Pinecone are much faster in terms of getting the data. Again, that uses semantic searching, that's a different thing, but the way it retrieves the data, it's a memory DB thing. So it's much faster. So you can use this also, depending on what data you're retrieving, what latency you're expecting, and other things. And then MongoDB if it's a semi or unstructured data. The algorithm is pretty much the same thing. Its algorithm is mainly it's the KNN only for all of them, but yeah, it's pretty much the same thing. I don't know, I think Redis and Pinecone uses some other algorithm, but yeah, it's the same. The semantic searching capability is exactly the same, because that's how it provides a context, but the algorithm may be different. But since we have been suggesting for semantic searching Amazon OpenSearch for a long while, so a lot of customers which were building before generative AI application, they were building solutions. We were suggesting you do OpenSearch only. Consider a scenario you are creating and maybe and something similar to Swiggy or something similar to Zomato also. So, and you wanted to eat something and you may not add the right value, maybe you're trying to write halwa, or you are trying to order something but you don't know spelling of it. So you enter into it, but the intention is that to write it. That's where the semantic searching. So semantic searching doesn't search by the word of it. It's searched by the intention of the search or the meaning, because it again stores into an embeddings and then do it. So that's where so we have been suggesting since OpenSearch as our own tool for semantic searching for a long while. We again recommend customers to use OpenSearch to do it, because again the latency wise it's almost the same. Cost wise also it's almost the same. If you remove the Aurora is on a cost effective side. So then it's our own product, and our customers have been using the semantic searching capabilities for a long while. We recommend that only. But yes, the open source RAGs are mostly built on Pinecone and Redis, so we have include that as well. It's pretty much the same thing. I'll say you'll get a little bit on a higher in Pinecone, but yes, again the cost is a trade-off. But it's exactly the same thing. You'll see the latency in very high searches and other things. Apart from that, it's pretty much comparable. But yes, in some searches you'll see the Pinecone maybe on a more effective side. That's why we have included Pinecone as well. But again, the trade-off is between the cost and everything, and the direct integration of OpenSearch with an AWS. So OpenSearch is also not an AWS-based service. It's a managed version of Elasticsearch. So that's also not. But yes, it's pretty much comparable. The performance-wise, you'll feel a little degradation in Aurora only, but yes, the cost wise also it's on a cost effective side only. In terms of OpenSearch, Pinecone and Redis, you'll find a very comparable performance. In some use cases, you'll find OpenSearch to be on higher side, sometimes Pinecone. But yes, I'll again put an extra word for Pine. Yes, you'll find most use cases Pinecone being on a higher side. Anything more on RAG, prompt, agentic AI, multi-agents, why do we use multi-agents and other things? Anything? Yeah, perfect. MCP. MCP. So MCP, again, like I said, MCP is usually, so MCP usually doesn't come in picture. Right now, it's, as I said, it's a subset of your agentic AI workflow only, specialized to do a specific task. For example, so agentic AI usually can be integrated with anything out there to create end-to-end workflows. MCP servers usually gets integrated with a chatbot or a virtual assistant or all these IDs that support it. So for example, if you have an ID like Cursor, Amazon QCLI, which I'll show in a console in the second half, Amazon QCLI, Cursors and other things that have a direct integration to MCP servers because they have an MCP client done. So just again stepping back, MCP is nothing, it's just an open source protocol which is used to connect to an external APIs or external databases and fetch you and give you the results out of it. And now what are MCP servers? MCP servers are servers which have a huge amount of data for a specific thing, like AWS, like could be an EKS, like it could be AWS architecture. So for example, in a chatbot, if you want to get a very specific results, rather than if you want your model to get a very specific, again go back and think it as an agentic AI RAG. So there's a data source that is sitting, that has a lot of amount of very specific data, foreign level data. Your ID could directly use agents to talk to that MCP servers, get the results, and then provide a context and give you the results. Like EKS, cost, I think I have in my laptop cost or architecture. I can let you create architectures for you. I can write it will create architectures on and fly from QCLI. Or I think cost, I may have missed one of them I have in my CLI. So that you can see, it's just simple. So it's not the correct definition, but step back and think it like as an agentic RAG, where MCP server is a RAG thing from where you're getting context, and QCLI is using an agent to, which agent or a client to basically trigger and call to that MCP server and get the results out there. MCP is nothing, it's a protocol that helps to talk between it's a protocol that is used to let your agents talk to the external APIs or external databases, fetch results and store it. It's an open source protocol. Which server? Oh, if you want to create your own MCP servers? No, not, depends what kind of your thing. So again, do you want to create an MCP servers? Again the question, if you want to create it, no MCP server, no. So at the end of the day, there are multiple MCP servers that are already created. So and you can create your own MCP servers as well. You can create your own. So for example, like the maybe not a correct definition, but if you're going back to the RAG-based approach, you have your enterprise data. So if you want to create your own MCP servers at the end of the day, you may need a server or storage or maybe anything. You may not need, it's not training at the end, it's just storing the data. So you may not need maybe an Trainium or Inferentia and all those kind of things. But yes, just for using sense, where you don't need to create, because you don't need to invest your time in creating MCP servers, it's just a matter of writing a 5-line code where you just call an MCP server. I'll show you that also. So there are MCP servers. So again, depends on, for example, all the MCP servers that AWS are free. There are some MCP servers that provides, it's an authenticated API based thing. So you can just have that authenticated API and then do it. Yes, because again, it's the same things. So what we are trying to do at the end of the day, if you look in, again, if you remember the top stack, on the top of the stack were the applications that were leveraging the LLM. So now we are just trying to work on the top layer where we are trying to utilize as much and give as much input convenience to customer. So customer from their Q CLI, Q is again that, if you remember, Q was sitting on top of it, correct? Q was on the top of the stack. So we are telling customers, don't leave your terminal. You can write codes, chat, talk to an MCP servers, create architectures from your terminal. Don't leave it. That's the convenience. So how does it does it? Because MCP servers are usually used for all these CLI based things. So how can you talk to these servers? You don't write agents or something. MCP servers are already there. Just add that MCP servers into a JSON file and put it into your not AWS, but any of the agentic AI or any of the CLI of this, maybe QCLI, Cursor, or anything. And like I said, all the LLMs or all the chatbots have Q client already embedded. You don't do anything. Once you add that thing, you can just call that particular MCP servers. It will automatically do it. That's the ease we are offering. So I'll show you that as well maybe after the lunch. So you don't need to create MCP servers. You don't need to add any authentications. 99% of the MCP servers that are available are open source and are open source. You just get an endpoint. You just need to do it, because lot of people who are creating MCP servers are just trying to accumulate all the data and give it to the CLI, so more people get.
Those things are up to date.
Yes, that's the one way of avoiding the knowledge cutoff. Yes. It depends. For example, if it's like the AWS architecture thing, so it continuously gets scrapped from AWS documentations and update the MCPs for EKS also. For example, consider there's an MCP server for AWS SDK. that has information about the SDKs of Java, Python, Rust, C#, and everything. So what it does, it just scraps everything. For example, if any new library has been changed, everything or something has changed, new version has came up, it will scrap it, update the MCP server so that your LLM doesn't need to be updated every now and then. So who holds the for example, all the AWS, I can be accountable for AWS MCP servers. All the AWS MCP servers, there are set of teams which tracks it and keeps it up to date through scrapping, through pipelines, through other things. So that's the. But yes, if you create your own, you need to manage it. That's again the if you. No. Again, RAG is when you provide there's a different way to create MCP servers.
No. For example, RAG will search the external world, right? Means some documents, right? Some ABs.
Correct. So, but
RAG is not related to these MCPs, right?
that is not. So just to give you a much cleaner concept, is that it's an agentic way RAG. But how you define MCP server is a different way to define it, because you need to define the MCP protocol there, you need to define a lot of other things. But yes, the management of the up-to-date data is something. So now the newer way of having and avoiding the knowledge cutoff is using an MCP server rather than using a RAG-based approach if it's a general purpose thing. Like I said, if it's an enterprise data, you can still use a RAG. But if you are trying to avoid maybe a knowledge cutoff for an open source things, people are moving out from RAG-based approach to an MCP server-based approach. Correct. And one thing, you don't need to leave the terminal. So I can do anything and everything without going to the ChatGPT or DeepSeek or Amazon's Bedrock console also. I can do it from my terminal. Any more questions on this? Anything till what we have discussed, Bedrock, MCP, agentic AI, prompts and everything. Should we go ahead? Yeah.
Can we invoke SQL or any API towards agents?
Yes. So you SQL calls in this SQL. What do you want?
We have some data of products in our database. So if a query is about give me a brief about some products, then the model will automatically go to our database and do an SQL query and get optimized data from it. Can we do that?
Yeah. So you can use agentic. So that's again not a direct recommended approach, because you need to feed So if you go to the, if you look into the agentic AI, there's a column of, there was a model, and then there's a column of action group. So in an action group, using a Lambda function, maybe using Python or Java or anything, you will define that this is my endpoint of my SQL server, hit it with this and this credential, and once this credential is there, once you get an access to it, give me an access thing, run a query on top of that thing, give me the output and push the output to it. That is pretty much possible. Not directly recommended, because then you need to push the credentials directly in an API function group only. But you can use secrets manager and other things to do it. But yes, it's pretty much possible.
Can we do some, is this query auto updated or means automatically generated by the models, or do we need to give the old queries first?
So again, you can tell the model to generate the queries, but again the flow will increase. So you can use model to generate the queries, but as part of the action group, you need to define something there as query. So you can let another pipeline to update your action groups continuously. For example, what you can do is that you can let an action group or maybe a CloudWatch event to update your action group continuously, saying that this and query should be tuned. But ideally, that Lambda function will have only one query which you will write, or whatever query you are writing. You can create a pipeline to continuously update it, but you will be passing a singular, when I say singular, you will be passing everything, the endpoints, the query and everything together only. But you can create a pipeline to continuously update it. Your API action group or action group, agentic action group. Yeah.
External APIs and get data from it.
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
So that is the recommend. So that is what we use. So that's why agentic AI we use it. You can use agentic AI like I was saying. When you talk about MCP servers, you talk about, okay, MCP servers MCP is a protocol which could be used to basically fetch from external data or databases and everything. Similar way, it's a subset of agentic AI only. You can use agents to basically get results or scrap data from an internet and give it to you, and then model could process and do it. So you can also let agents to do go to an SQL servers and do it. The most recommended approach right now is MCP server, because MCP server directly gives you an access to SSH option. So you can connect to an external databases using an SSH based option that is much more secure to do it, to do all this thing. That's why these all small tasks are being moved from agentic AI to, not agentic AI, moved out because it's the same thing, to MCP based server based approach, because it's doing that job perfectly. So for an agentic AI, you need to create that SSH based approach, but in MCP server that's already been created, or an external API based connection is already been created. You just need to call it and the pipeline is already created. That's the only difference. But yeah, if you want to do it through agents, pretty much possible. You just need to write an action group that hit this. Maybe for example, if you're writing in .NET, wget this website, scrap the data, accumulate it, extract it, get the data and push it to you. Same way as a database, hit this API, this is my credential, get into it, run this query, give me the result, aggregate the result and push it to it. It's pretty much possible. Any more questions on agentic AI? Sorry, I was doing Q. But Bedrock, models, prompt, anything? Anybody? So we'll cover the Q in the next one, but yeah, I'll cover the security then. Go to the slides. No, go to the previous slides. So yeah, so I think we'll have just the last component of security, then we'll cover the Amazon Q, the top stack after the lunch, and I'll show you demos and everything. And after that, I'll not demos, I'll walk you through the console, whatever you say. I have Q, CLI, Q business, everything there in my console, so we can show and play with it. But yeah, the last part is now whatever, go back to the security. So the security comment that I was talking here about. So we have talked about customizations, we have talked about everything. Now the final component of Bedrock that is left is the Amazon Bedrock security. So how does it basically helps you in security? First thing and foremost thing that is published on top is that none of the customer data is being used to train any of the models. Either it's an Amazon based model or any of the model, none of the customer's data is used to do it. Then second and most important thing, all the data that and all the call that has been made to Amazon Bedrock, all the data is encrypted in transit and at rest. When I say at rest, it is KMS protected. In transit, it is all TLS based protocol based calls. So everything is encrypted. Even the data that you use for customization, that is stored in S3 bucket, it's encrypted in rest as well as in transit. Then Amazon Bedrock has a support for your GDPR, SOC, ISO, and HIPAA compatibility, so you can use it for anything. That's the one part of it, and then the major security components. Now, the very important component of Bedrock is having a Bedrock guardrails. Now, what are guardrails? Guardrails are nothing. It's just the safeguards that you put to your GenAI applications or LLM or the application that you're going to create using a large language models to see that it doesn't perform something that is not expected out of it. Again, it's an model could hallucinate, model could give a biased result, model could give, because again it's if you remember, go back to the first slide and remember prompt engineering. It's just as basic as that. The whatever input it get, it is expected to give the same output as per the input. So for example, you may not want in your application that if somebody gives a biased input, it gives a biased output, or it gives a hallucinated output, or it gives a wrong output. To just avoid those kind of things, there is a concept called as guardrails. Now, what does guardrail does? Guardrail basically help you configure the thresholds to filter your first undesirable, second potentially harmful, and third the prompt attacks. Prompt attacks could be anything. Somebody writing up somebody basically writing a something as a prompt which is not expected, which is biased. These are all prompt attacks. Or maybe a jailbreaking, which is trying to get a result which is maybe not right, or maybe something which is kind of not expected. So that's the thing. What does guardrail does? It basically identifies, correct, and explain the factual claims. For example, if you have you can use an automated reasoning defined there to what it does to disallow the denied topic. For example, that you don't want people to comment on an ethnicity, or you don't want your model to comment on a race, or you don't want to comment on a particular topic. You don't want your model to comment on a particular space. You can just put it into a denied topic. So this will be disallowed at the end of the day. Now also you can remove the PII data, that is personally identifiable data. You can remove it using the guardrails, using a Macie. So you can use a guardrail and a combination of guardrail and Macie to retract your personal identifiable data when somebody goes ahead and puts it into a prompt. This is all just to put a prompt when somebody is trying to put. So we are trying to avoid that if somebody put any kind of prompt, we are not giving the result as per prompt. We are blocking something which is undesirable, like the word says, undesirable or potentially harmful text. Then it also defines a set of words to detect block in an user inputs and model responses, and also it filters the hallucination by detecting the relevance of model response. So that's what the guardrail does. So again, just retracting it, guardrail basically helps you define a set of safeguards around your generative AI applications, so that it doesn't respond to an harmful input or harmful prompt, or given output that is not expected out of a generative AI application. So that gives you a security layer on top of it. Any doubt? I think this is also very important. So any doubts on this guardrail? How do you define it, and what kind of things you can put, block and other things? Because this is the basic of the security in Bedrock. Yes, you will have that data at rest, data in transit and everything, but if you are trying to create a generative AI application, you need to be very well versed about the how guardrail works, what do you need to block. So again, blocking differs from application to applications, but how can you block it? You need to know it before you're building anything out there. I think that this is fine. So again, one of the way of inference, like I said, one of Amazon Bedrocks, one of the way how you can consume is that first is on demand, second is provision throughput, and third is batch inference. Batch inference is something that has recently launched. Usually what customers use is on demand, where you just use the Amazon Bedrock with amount of tokens you're using it. So Amazon Bedrock is not used on amount of time you're using it like other AWS services. It's just basically based on amount of tokens. So tokens is input and output. So token could be a word or a combination of word or or combination of anything. It depends on how the segregation happens. But Bedrock pricing is mainly on amount of input and output tokens. So if you're planning if you're doing anything running Bedrock for any amount of time, it just charges you based on the amount of tokens you are going to put into the input tokens as well as the output tokens. But if you are going with customizing the model that you discussed, if you're going for if you're going to fine tuning, you're going for continued pre-training, that's where you need to use a provision throughput, which has a commitment for 1 month or 6 months, where you reserve a particular throughput at a fixed cost. Now, why do you want to reserve a particular throughput? Because now you're customizing the model at the end of the day, and you may need a higher throughput to test it out. That's where you use a provision throughput. This is a pretty new thing that we have launched. For example, if you wanted your models to perform a batch-based operations, it's not a continuous application-based things. If you want the models to perform a batch-based operations, then you can go ahead and use Amazon Batch Inference, Bedrock Batch Inference. It is 50% more cost-effective than your on-demand, because you are not paying for a particular input-out tokens. You are usually paying for a batch job that you're trying to do there. So that's the 3 different inference or the pricing or the inference consumption options in Bedrock. I think this is fine. Again, Amazon Bedrock Marketplace is similar to the, if you remember the first slide, the SageMaker Jumpstart we have discussed. Similar, we have found a lot of foundational models in Amazon Bedrock Marketplace as well. So, any doubts till now? In the next, after the lunch, we'll discuss about the top stack of it. The queue in QuickSight, queue in Connect. It's not Code Whisperer, it's now known as Amazon Queue Developer. We'll talk about Queue Developer, we'll talk about Queue CLI, we'll talk about something, we'll try to run through some MCP servers, how can you use Queue CLI to use MCP servers and other things. But yeah, before that, do you have any doubts on Bedrock, RAG, maybe agentic AI, multi-agents, prompt engineering, the lower 2 tech stacks? Anything, anybody?
This on-demand, right? The on-demand token.
Okay.
Apply all the models.
Yes. No, all the models. It's just the pricing is different. For some of the models are being priced through AWS Marketplace, mostly are priced by AWS Invoice only. Because now we are offering it through our own. Depend. So it's some cost, for example 0.15 cost per 1000 tokens. That depends on model. It's different for different models. You'll find it in pricing page. So no, you don't need to renew anything. It will come as a monthly bill. So how many tokens you need to you are using it will be charged based on that. You'll get a bill saying that, for example, you have used 1 crore token input and 1 crore output tokens a month. It will come a bill multiplied by that. This is how tokens you have used it, because it's an on-demand basis. When you don't use it, you don't need to. There's no prior commitment. How many tokens you're going to use it, you're going to pay for that, nothing else apart from this. There's no commitment, nothing. Yeah, I showed you there's a prompt management tool to effectively do it. So there's a prompt that is recently added in that. Yes. Yes, you can add it, or so that is one way of doing it, or you can use another model to basically use an NLP based input to a model to get a better prompt. There are multiple ways to do it. There are third-party tools. You can use any model to give you better prompt, or there is also an option in Amazon also. I think it's not in pricing calculator. You need to manually calculate Bedrock. I think it's, as far as I know, I think for the most of the reasons it's not in Bedrock. Okay, for the number of prompts. Correct. Again, it depends on prompt to prompt, but yes, you can again use the same. So there's no tool. There are a lot of third party. So there are some tools from LangChain and LangGraph that does that for you. But usually you will not get that how many tokens are there. So if you go to the correct. So again, it depends on prompt. For example, you can limit the number of prompts as well there, but you know it. Usually, it's the number of words only. Usually, but sometimes a word could be a 2 prompt, or 2 words could be a single. Sorry, I'm saying prompt tokens, or a single word, a single could be. So usually that's how we calculate it. But just to let you know how is it, if you go to when I show you the console as well, there's another option in Amazon Bedrock, which is a playground option. So if you go to Playground and put a prompt on the top, you'll see there's an input, output, and latency there. So there you can check that because each model's way of having an prompt differs. For example, one model could treat a single word as a one token. Some can treat it as 2 tokens. That also differs from model to model. So there's no direct. There are some third-party tools, but not something that we offers. Customer can just trace it with these kind of things that treat it as a single word and do it, and then they can optimize it because you have a CloudWatch metrics you can use to basically track how many tokens are there, and then could optimize it. And you can also put in the prompt template saying that nobody can put prompt more than 50 words. So anybody who puts more than 50 words, that's how the applications are built, just to optimize it. But there's no Amazon-based tool that calculates things for you.